Okay, this is a response to a link that was put on the Facebook group British Muslims for Secular Democracy. I may have mentioned this group before in some of my videos. Just to clarify, I'm not a Muslim, but I do agree with that group's principles. I support their principles, which is promoting secularism, combating Islamism and theocracy. I think they're a productive group and I support their general principles. Anyway, someone on the group had put a link to this interview, and I should emphasize at this point, the exact time of the interview is not specified, but I looked up the YouTube source and that's at least 2010, so I'm guessing it'll be sometime around the mid-2000s. But I think it is still relevant because these issues until there's any legislative change, then it is still a relevant issue. So basically, the interview, I think it's Peter Sissons, interviewing a young Muslim woman who got a job at a school in Leeds, and basically he's in a debate with her about the dispute that she got into with the school. I believe the school dismissed her because she didn't conform to the school's dress code. Now she's a niqab wearing Muslim woman, which if you don't know is a full face covering. You can only see the eyes. Some people incorrectly put it as the burqa. The burqa isn't actually a full body covering, but this is a niqab. And basically, she fell out with the school. They dismissed her because of the dress code issue. I'll put a link to this debate so you could judge for yourself. And incidentally, the video that it's on, I'm not endorsing the title one way or another. I'm having my own views in this video. It's just that is the link. I'm not an atheist, by the way. But most of the people on the British Muslims for Secular Democracy were pretty much agreeing with the interviewer that the woman was showing double standards and being rather ridiculous. For one thing, she was dishonest because she conceded that when she went for the initial interview for the school, it was with a male governor and she wasn't wearing the veil then. So that automatically makes her dishonest because if the school has a dress code, just to clarify, it's a Church of England school, if they have a certain dress code, then she's violated that by already giving the false premise that she doesn't wear the veil. So she got the job and then she started wearing the veil. Now she says in the interview that she is a good teacher and she feels she's being discriminated against. I don't know whether or not she's a good teacher. It's not for me to say because I haven't seen her teach. But I do know that having a face covering automatically puts up a barrier. And there is some irony in this. By the way, she made up sort of, I guess you could say, an excuse or a counter. Well, you speak to people in call centres, you can't see them. But the point there is, we never see people in phone calls, and that's what you expect. You don't expect to see people because they're hundreds of miles away in some cases, thousands of miles if you're talking to someone in India. So I don't think that's really a valid argument. If you're in the presence of someone, body language is important. It is. Because we interact with people judging partly on their facial expressions. Now, if you can only see someone's eyes, it does make it harder to communicate, even if you can hear them. And I think even that can be dubious because it's common sense. If you have something over your mouth and you're talking, and I'm not taking the piss doing that, I'm raising what I believe is a valid issue. If someone has their mouth covered, they're not going to be very audible. Certainly not as audible as if their mouth was uncovered. Also, it's important to point out that the vast majority of Muslim women do not wear the niqab. Some Muslim women wear the hijab, which, by the way, I have no problem with. I don't think the hijab is a problem at all. The hijab, just for the record, is the head covering, but you could fully see someone's face. I don't think a hijab is a problem at all, because it doesn't cause any communication problems whatsoever, and male jihadists cannot use it as a disguise, because there has been situations where terrorists, not necessarily in Britain but in other countries, have used the burqa and the niqab in order to carry out suicide bombings in male areas, for example police stations and so on, by dressing as a woman, because male officers aren't going to search a woman in the same way. So there is that legitimate problem. there's a whole range of public sector jobs you can conceivably see this being a problem. Can a niqab wearing woman be a nurse when she needs to communicate with the patients? Can a niqab wearing woman um, be a bus driver or a bank worker or anything else like that? In fact, I think it's actually illegal to work in a bank if you have your face covered, as far as I know. But basically, there's an irony on all of this, because the idea is supposedly to be modest from the male gaze, and I'll make a point about that in a minute, but actually it has the opposite effect. It brings attention. So as Peter Systems rightly points out, but actually you're isolating yourself. You're complaining about discrimination, but you are isolating yourself from the society that you're in. The woman's demanding that she gets respect, but she's actually not being very respectful to a society that relies on body language for communication. Also, I'd make a point, if it really is about free choice, and maybe in some cases it is, well then there isn't going to be any negative implications of her not wearing it. I mean, she already didn't wear it for the interview, so clearly she can. It's not going to cause her pain not to wear it. I do think this is something that we need to really be a lot more assertive on, and basically go down the French route. Ban it. Just ban it. Ban the niqab, ban the burqa. I would stop short maybe of banning the hijab. I'm not sure if the French have done that. I would stop short of that because I don't think the hijab is a problem. I had an interesting conversation with a Chinese girl yesterday, and she saw it generally as a problem, and she said she was grateful she was Chinese, that she didn't have to wear that. I made the point to her that some Muslim women choose to, some Muslim women don't. But anyway, the point here is that the woman was isolating herself, and she came across as very, frankly, a little bit stubborn, well, stubborn, because there really is no compulsion either in Islam or in this society to wear the niqab. I've never seen any source in the Quran that says women need to wear the face covering. Someone even pointed out that in the ancient Middle East they were traditionally worn, actually, and probably men wore them as well, as protection from sandstorms, which is a practical thing. I don't know if there's any historic basis for that, but over time, certainly in Islamic theocracies, they became part of a very conservative dress code. So women who choose to wear the burqa and the niqab, in some ways I think they're insulting women who don't have a choice, such as women who lived under the Taliban. So basically, I think we just need to put our foot down and say, look, this is the United Kingdom. We're a secular democracy, or at least we should be. You cannot wear the full niqab or the burqa in this country, because goodness knows Islamic theocracies are very happy to put down laws that everyone else has to obey. Female reporters who go to Arab countries have to wear headscarves. They respect that rule. So surely we should be putting our foot down, saying, look, this does not do anything for a secular democracy. It isolates people, it causes communication problems, there's even practical issues. I don't know, this isn't something that hurts other people, but it's just a practical question. I genuinely don't know how women with the headscarf can physically eat properly if they go to a cafe or something. I've seen pictures of them sort of lifting, but it's ridiculous. That is clearly ridiculous, and I don't know how any woman can rationally argue that it makes life more convenient. Also, I mentioned the male gaze issue. That is actually rather insulting to men, because it insinuates that all men, and this includes all non-Muslim men as well, are all lustful beasts who, if we see the female form, we're going to pounce on top of her. So I think they also have a somewhat bad attitude to men, women who voluntarily, I'm talking about, choose the niqab, because they seem to think that all men are potential rapists. So it's actually a bad attitude to men generally. There are parts of the world, I believe, that there is an imposition to wear this. That comes from very conservative, backward societies, but this is the United Kingdom. We should be putting our foot down and saying, no, this is against the rules. And if they complain about discrimination, I would make this point. People who wear hoodies might not like the inconvenience of being turned away from a nightclub, but that's the rules. So if people live in this country, they should respect the rules. If they have a problem with the rules, with the law, They have the democratic right to have the freedom of speech to complain about that, but they should at least oblige by it. So I do think it's time that we've just done it. I don't know what's stopping us. Just ban the niqab, ban the burqa. We've been debating about this issue for long enough. I'd stop short of banning the hijab. I really don't think the hijab is a problem. But, you know, there's also an attitude I find from some Muslim women that is very condescending towards non-Muslim women. That attitude is, and some Muslim men also take this attitude, that Western women are shameless. Western women are always showing off their bodies. That's not the case. There's many Western women who dress in a very modest way. Not that it's anyone's business but theirs. When it comes to women's dress, I really don't think there's a problem unless it impacts society. And the problem with the niqab and the burqa is it does, because it creates communication problems. Okay, I probably should extend that. I think it would be inappropriate if a woman wearing a bikini went to a funeral. So there are codes concerning dress in life, actually. I changed my mind on that. There are certain codes. You wouldn't go to a funeral, or if you're a man, topless. It would be disrespectful. In the same way, it is disrespectful in a non-Muslim country to deliberately isolate yourself by wearing a niqab. So my stance on this is allow the hijab, ban the burqa and the niqab outright. And Muslim women who wear it should be obliged to remove it, because that is not the sort of society we are in.